other, so to speak. So, so much ignorance, so much lack of knowledge, let me call it. Ignorance sounds like a harsh word, but so much lack of knowledge exists about this beautiful country. And a lot of the knowledge that's out there is limited to the Hollywood cartoon blockbuster Madagascar. Well, for us on this platform today, our ignorance would cease because we have a true born daughter of the land here to share vibes about that beautiful country with us. And like I said before, if you have the time and if you're able to raise Daddy B, we also have a bit of FaceTime with a man, Ahuma Tete Okansi, aka Daddy Bosco. Journalist, activist, musician. He will also come and share some thoughts with us. But meanwhile, let's cut straight into the studio and welcome the gorgeous Miss Mihoby Rabeharison.
Hi, Kwesi. How
Did
are
I
you?
pronounce your name right?
Close. Very good.
Help me.
It's Mihoby Rabeharison. So it was very close.
Oh, okay.
Better than most. By
Okay.
far.
1 out of 10. How much would you give me?
I would say probably 9.5.
Yes.
You know.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me here.
Yes. Madagascar. Tell us about Madagascar. Let's say but before we do that, actually, tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you're doing.
Okay. Well, I'm originally from Madagascar. I was born there. My parents are there. My lineage and heritage is there. And when I was about 5, I had the opportunity to live in different countries in Africa. So I've lived in Senegal and Cameroon probably collectively, let's say 12, 13 years. And then after that, I moved to Budapest, Hungary, and did my high school over there. And then I came to United States to continue on in college. So I feel really blessed for my journey because a lot of people like to travel, and that's a very good thing. I think also what's very important is to live amongst a different way of being. And you really get to see the difference there. So for that, that's a huge blessing for me to have seen, in this culture, everything is like iMac, iPhone, I.
Yep.
Whereas you go to different cultures, it's all about us. There is no real I. Even this idea of space, space doesn't belong to you. And when you get on a bus in Africa, someone will hand you their baby while they're getting the rest of their stuff together to put onto the bus as well. And here sometimes you sit too close to someone and it's, you feel like you're intruding on their personal space,
Yep.
even though it belongs to none of us. So that has been a blessing for me, and to be able to see different aesthetics. And so a little bit about what I do, particularly in terms of Madagascar, is I offer people trips back home to Madagascar. It's a seldom visited part of Africa. Many people go South Africa, Senegal, Nigeria, Ghana, Ethiopia, Morocco, but not so much to Madagascar. And I noticed that many of the people who were offering trips to Madagascar were not of African descent. So then you have a little bit of a neo-colonial project repeating itself. So I said to myself, well, it wasn't so much I said to myself, it was my friends kept asking me and people I knew, next time you go to Madagascar, take me with you. So I said, all right, let's see how serious these people are. And I began to offer trips back home to Madagascar, and the profits from the trips go to establishing a school of the arts. And we can talk about that more later and why that's important.
The School of the Arts in Madagascar.
Exactly, in Madagascar.
In Antananarivo, that's the capital, right?
Exactly.
Or you work in the rural.
In rural areas, it's the idea is to maybe have 3 branches: a school of the performing arts, a school that looks at mineralogy and botany to see how the land can be used to sort of heal people. So the exact place is still, I'm still researching that. The performing arts school probably in the capital, because that would be an easy draw for people to come there. And then the other schools would be on site where there's a lot of mineralogy going on, is where the school would be set up.
What kind of minerals are Madagascar endowed with?
Oh, wow. I mean, just as you were saying in the beginning, how there are over 600 species that can only be found in Madagascar that are endemic to Madagascar. Such it is with everything that's in the land and the people and the culture. It's kind of evolved in its own insular way from the mainland of Africa. Minerals, well, we have rubies, sapphires, amethyst, quartz, you name it. There are many minerals that can only be found in Madagascar. So many jewelers or people who.
Some of these minerals that you were talking about, I only used to read about them in fairy tales, like tales of the Arabian Nights or something, and then you hear
Right.
about quartz and rubies and emeralds and all. Do they really still exist?
Oh, for sure. There's like a huge, and it's not only do they exist, but now they're kind of a protected resource of the land. For example, only a certain number of sapphires can leave Madagascar in a year, in a given year, and almost not at all. And you have to get special permission to be able to do that. But there's a town in this region called Finaransu, and it's right south of the capital, and it's just a sapphire mine.
Wow. Okay. It's such a beautiful country out there, but so little is known about it. Why is that? Is there like a dip in marketing the country?
For Madagascar?
Yes.
Well, it has to do with colonial ties still, which is the whole thing of it. Tourism there or visiting there being a neo-colonial project is, well, in my opinion, is that a lot of Germans, a lot of Europeans, Germans, Italians, Spanish, and French come to visit there, but seldom from here. In part, that might also be due to the plane ticket, because even from here, New York City to South Africa, the plane ticket is atrocious to get there. Sometimes you can find good deals, of course. So I think people will rather take that and just go West Africa or the northern part of Africa because it's just closer. So that might be a factor as well. And a lot of the lines of communication and relations outside of Madagascar have been created with the last colonizing country, which was France. So a lot of Malagasy people, they get scholarships to go university to France, but not so much here to America.
Give us a brief history of Madagascar. Where is it? Where is the country coming from? Where are its people coming from? Briefly.
Well, briefly, so many people, when they see me, they say, "Oh my God, you look Asian. Are you mixed with Asian?" And what I always have to say, if we believe that Africa is the nascence of civilization, it's more so that the Asians look like me. So we migrated these different patterns, and people's phenotypes kind of shifted or adapted based on the geography and what was needed in the places that they were. Having said that, during maritime days, you can see where Madagascar is located. Everybody wanted control of Madagascar because you can get anywhere in the world from Madagascar, making trade very easy. So at some point, at 1800s perhaps, we had like a Hungarian queen. She was ousted very quickly, but she sure enough did come and try and plant her flag there and stay there and hold on. So all of that is to say everybody's been there trying to take control of Madagascar.
That's interesting. What I also keep thinking about is how whoever took over South Africa left Madagascar alone. What happened, you know?
I'm not sure what happened in that case. I mean, I guess they did sort of leave us alone because South Africa was mainly held by the Dutch,
Yep.
right? But the people in most recent history that had control of Madagascar were the British first and then the French. So I'm not sure what happened there. Maybe they found enough what they needed in South Africa.
I guess. They didn't know there were all the rubies and the quartz. They would definitely have come over there.
Right.
But I'm also interested in, you just answered that question, but I want to know if the work that you're doing, you've already said that it was more like a reaction to friends asking you to do it. But at the same time, do you find a need to feel in like there's a marketing deficit for your country and you feel like it's your place to, bring your country to the world map?
You know, it's not, it's a haphazard thing. It's the more I talk about Madagascar, the more people want to know about Madagascar, and I think that's a good thing. And the more it is that people are becoming conscious of the environment and eco-consciousness, and really how the land can be used to restore stability within people, and then of course that would equate to stability in communities and so on and so forth. People are starting to reevaluate what they see as wealth. People are starting to prioritize their health as wealth. And so when you go to a place like Madagascar, which is used to be, but still is, a lot of rainforest and greenery, that gives off a lot of negative ions. And that's something that your body needs to restore itself, because things like electricity, electromagnetic radiation, pollution creates free radicals, which end up being positive ions. So then the negative ions kind of balance that out, which is why when you are near, you know, a waterfall, you feel a sense of calm. It's because those ions are emitted. Or when you walk through the forest, your head suddenly, or even a couple of trees in a park, Central Park, your head expands a little bit more when you hear the birds. So as people begin to prioritize that, and of course you can see that here with the whole movement towards everything organic and everything, you know, in Africa there's no such thing as organic. Like, why would we waste the time to
Everything's
inject
naturally organic.
something? Yeah.
Yeah, yes, indeed. You mentioned a while ago that people say that you look Asiatic.
Uh-huh.
I also read that the people from Madagascar actually descended from something like a crossbreed between the, you know, some Asiatic people and then some groups of people from West Africa. Do you trace any roots to West Africa at all?
I mean, me personally, well, in the land, first of all, definitely for sure. And one of the reasons why many Malagasy people who leave Madagascar look like me is because when the British were occupying Madagascar, they got together with the Mirna king to unify, kind of like a Genghis Khan, unify Madagascar under a banner of being Malagasy. So the British gave arms to the Mirna people, which happened to look like me. But when you go to the rest of the island, everybody looks very, very diverse. And I always say, if you are a melanated person, almost anybody can be from Madagascar, because we really run the range of phenotypes, I guess you would say.
Is there a cultural clash of any sort over there? Are people very, very conscious of their ethnicities and therefore clash with other ethnicities within that, you know, the subgroup? Is there
Groups of
anything like
people? Well, you know, for whatever reason, Malagasy people tend to be quite peaceful most of the time. So clash, I wouldn't say it's a clash, and it's something that we call fad. Fad is taboo. So even talking about different ethnicities and such is fad.
Oh, wow.
Exactly. And it's just sort of understood, as with many African traditions, that this person doesn't marry this person. You don't even have to talk about it. And the day that you bring someone you're not supposed to marry to your house, there's going to be a ruckus. That's it. Everybody's going to come around to talk to you of what's wrong with you. Why aren't you marrying within your lineage? And that really hasn't changed, because talking about ethnicities is fad or taboo.
Is fad something like hubris? Do you
What's hubris?
like, well, not quite, because hubris is kind of like pride. It's excessive pride.
It's not exactly like that. Like fad is like something that you don't do. Like, for example,
Taboo,
taboo.
basically.
If you put your purse on the floor, that's fad. To say excuse me in Malagasy, you say as a fad, like don't make it taboo. Like if you step on someone's toe. So fad, you know, fad is certain people wearing certain colors. Just almost say it's superstition.
Very interesting. That's really very. There are a few unique cultural, you know, stuff that I've seen about Madagascar. This is definitely one of them, and I'm just learning it right now. But is it close to the caste system in India, for instance, where certain people of certain skin pigmentations are not allowed near certain other. Is it something
No,
like that?
it's not that dramatic. It's not that dramatic because people all over Madagascar of all different pigments occupy all different spaces, from doctor, politician. So it doesn't hold stigma for people to move forward in life.
Do they have like a group, like an ethnic group that feels superior to other
Oh
ethnic
yeah,
groups?
it's terrible of me to say this on air and about my people, but Mirna people, I'm over them. They really think that they have their Jesus and they have their supposed ideas of what power is, and they just walk around like they're the only people in Madagascar, and they're only in the capital for a reason.
That's another interesting point. Are they like, do they generally belong to like a ruling class, like an upper class? Is that what it is?
I wouldn't say that they belong necessarily to an upper class. I mean, this is still residues of colonialism. Because before the English helped the Mirna king, gave him arms to unify Madagascar under this Mirna umbrella, the people that were in power before were the Saklava, and the Saklava people are very dark-skinned people with very nappy hair. So it's still a product of colonialism.
But there's not been a major upheaval.
No,
of any
no, no,
sort
no, 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 no.
Yet in the
No,
country,
no, no, no.
and hopefully never.
Hopefully never.
Yeah.
There will be upheavals about other things, and the most major upheavals usually have to do with current political situations. Yeah.
Cool. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. But wow. Yeah, Madagascar. I really want to go. I definitely. Every word that comes out of your mouth makes me want to go so badly.
You're very welcome to come.
I am. I'm definitely gonna. It's definitely one of the things I want to do.
Well, in fact, one of the next trips that I'm planning is I was recently interviewed on CPR Radio, Coalition to Preserve Reggae Music, and the woman who runs it, Sharon Gordon, she said, ancestrally, I feel like I'm from Madagascar. So then I started doing research and found out Madagascar has this like huge reggae history of making reggae music since 70s.
Yep.
And then there's also a reggae Rastafari association there that the government actually supports to do, they call it reboisement, which is replanting of trees in different places around the capital. And so we're going to connect with them and such, which might be a good...
Wonderful. My friend
match with you.
My friend Theo from Malawi gave me a reggae song from Madagascar.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I didn't know what the singer was saying, but I really did enjoy it. So
okay.
I know about the Malagasy reggae, definitely, and it's great. But what's the culture like generally? Is the culture closer to the Asiatic cultures, or is it closer to African traditional cultures?
I always am going to say it's closer to African cultures, traditional from mainland African culture. For example, we have this one tradition called Famadian. And Famadian is when it's a death rite. So when our people die, we wrap them in this very expensive raw silk. And we don't bury them in the ground. We bury them in houses. And everybody has a shelf inside the house. And so my recollection, my only other reference for that is in Egypt, in Kemet. How people were buried kind of like that. Exactly. And our belief is that until the body is completely decomposed, the spirit is still there until you're left to bones and ashes. I mean, just bones. And Famadian is done based on the wealth of the family. Because when you have Famadian, every second and third cousin comes. So you have to feed 350, sometimes more people. And the silk is expensive. And then to hire the people who do, the traditional singers who do iragas, they're expensive as well. And so of late times, and also with the prevalence of Christianity, people have been saying, is this really necessary? Because it could prevent someone's school tuition to do Famadian. But my believing is that we have so many proverbs in Malagasy that say, without without the advice of the dead, we cannot even move forward, or the dead are more important than the living. So if that's true, we have to learn to make that sacrifice and remember what that is. But the more we get away from that, the more problems we have.
Definitely, and definitely links with African traditions that I know of. Just that that's one of the wake-up calls I got again, reading about, what's it called again,
Famadian.
And the bones of these people, of your revered ancestors, are actually removed, paraded,
Yes.
rewrapped in new silk,
Yes.
and then
Put back.
reinterred.
Right. Before the sun comes down.
Health hazards?
Well, there are specialists. There's ritual specialists who come as well. So only certain people can come touch the body. But when the body is like rewrapped, then everybody can touch the body in the silk. But ritual specialists have to come and oversee the whole thing.
How long after the body is buried are you allowed to do this?
Famadian
Yeah.
depends on the feeling of the family. Some people can go, 5 years, 2 years. Some people want to, if they have the money to do it, do every year.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. What are some of the other outstanding, for want of a better word,
Customs that we
customs
have.
that you have?
I mean, there's not really so much more that's outstanding. As I said, with the prevalence of Christianity, so much of that has been wiped away. But the people who still, and this is where I'm going this year actually, is into Saklava land. They have a thing called trumbagas, which is basically like possession rights, where you make ceremonies so that your ancestors come. The thing that's very different about trumbagas and other systems like Akan or Yoruba, what's Ifa, or Voodoo or any other system is that we don't say the name of a deity like, Nana Aserjibi. We say directly the name of that ancestor based on whatever qualities that ancestor may have. You ask them, let's say someone, you had an aunt who was just very gifted in keeping a man. You might just venerate her and ask her to come down and give you advice, but we don't have a deity. Our ancestors are the deity. So that might be something that is a little bit different from other systems.
So that it's a form of ancestral worship.
Exactly.
And you also name your children after ancestors? Do you
For
also
sure. Like my name is actually Mihoby Ravunmianta Rabeharison. And Ravunmianta is the name of my grandmother's, that's her maiden name. So we definitely keep the tradition like that as well. And it's lineal, so it goes by the name of the mother.
Oh, wow.
Mothers.
So you actually keep your mother's name, not your father's name?
Well, in recent time, that's changed a little bit, but that's why that's my middle name.
Okay. Wow. I want to go to Madagascar. I really need to go to Madagascar. Anyway, stick a pin. We'll be right back after this song. And we'll continue with Mihoby, Rabeharison. I try. And I've already got a 9.5, which is an A+, so that will pass. But yes, we'll right back after this song. This is Mama Africa from Ayata Safari, Mama Africa. We'll right back after this one.
Repatriation is a must. Rastafari, we trust. Mama Africa is calling us. Think of what our ancestors would have done if they had opportunity. Too much segregation, we need unity. Christians stand firm in your liberty. And be the royal and pursue your destiny. Don't ever turn your back on Rastafari. Forward we move and pay attention to the sign. You gotta walk the walk, talk the talk, give to give, live the life to live. And everything you do, you have to be positive. Why walk the walk, talk the talk, give to give, live the life to live. And everything you do, you have to be positive. Why Selassie, I know what what is good for mankind. Only Jah knows He's instruction to our design. They may think that they are in control, but He's the force within your soul. Righteousness purifies a heart that's cold. Glorify the King with your heart and soul. Heights in meditation, air heat and water condensation. Elevate into a higher meditation. The flesh will follow with has inspiration. A frequent foe, most feel they don't know. Babylon is trying to read my mind. Just seek and search and you will see. Haile Selassie is the power of the Trinity. Gotta walk the walk, talk the talk, give to give, live the life to live. And everything you do, you have to be positive. Why you? Oh, walk the walk, talk the talk, give to give, live the life to live. And everything you do, you have to be positive. Mama Africa is calling us. Think of what our ancestors would have done if they had opportunity. Too much segregation, we need unity. Christians stand firm in your liberty and be the royal empress who your destiny be. Don't ever turn your back on Rastafari. Forward we move and pay attention to the sign.
Mama Africa, Ayata Safari. Yes, indeed. We're still here with the gorgeous Mihoby. So let's go on. I'm still a bit more interested in the cultures and
Okay.
stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
Is there like record of any migration of any people from West Africa that you know about?
For sure. Well, not that I. There's a few. There's from Senegal. I know that some 200 years ago there was a flow of Senegalese people to Madagascar, and then the part of history that's not so great is when the French took their, when they had occupation of both Madagascar and Senegal, and they basically brought Senegalese soldiers because they helped turn around the wars for them to institute French law in Madagascar. So that was in more recent years, like the last 70 years or so, whenever that time was. But before that, there was a huge influx of and migration of people of Senegalese descent to Madagascar some 200 or so years ago. And being that I spent some time in Senegal as well, and I love the culture, the food, the dance, I really want to find where are these people in Madagascar, because the hybrid culture that they created, for some whatever reason, I don't know if people believe in like past lives or just understanding your ancestry just by the things you're interested in and what you do. I feel like I may have come from those people.
Yep. I mean, a lot of people feel the connection, between, especially West Africa and every other part of Africa, because West Africa seemed to be something like a mid-zone, if you will,
Right.
where people were coming from different directions and
Right.
kind of converging there and stuff like that. You're also a dancer. The arts of the people. Do you
Yes.
see it on mainland Africa? Does
What do you
is
mean?
the arts influenced by anything that you've seen on mainland Africa?
The arts in Madagascar? Oh, well, so much so. It's always that, but then remixed, right? So our version, we don't exactly have kora, but we'll have like a calabash with wood from it and strings attached to it. We do have our different, like the taman. We've had that too, and I don't know if that was something that was the under the arm. For people who don't know, it's the underarm drum with a lot of strings that kind of
Like
makes
the
a
dondo?
yeah.
The
It makes
dondo,
that
the Ghanaians have a version of that called the dondo.
ndondo.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if that's indigenous to us or something that came through the migrations. So there's definitely, and then of course djembe. Djembe is everywhere now, although I believe its origin was in a forest in Guinea somewhere when they traced the wood from the instruments. But I can definitely see the instrumentation. influence from the mainland of Africa, but then we have our own too, which you might not find everywhere. Like, for example, I would say our official kora, where people tell the stories, is on valia. And valia is bamboo, and you have strings going all around it. And people play it sitting down. They put the valia between their legs, and then they pluck. But it's very interesting because they move it in a circular way as well as they pluck.
Wow. Very interesting. Slavery. Africa went through a really dark period in its history where the people were enslaved and forcibly moved from their homelands to the West. Did Madagascar go through this epoch too?
Very much so. And it's something that is not really recognized as much, but I believe at some point, like at African Burial Ground, at some point here in New York City, at some point they found bones. And it was all of Malagasy people that were buried. It was like a train station. And then after they dug up, they realized that they were bones of Malagasy people who were brought here in enslavement. And also there's a festival in up north. Is it up north, upstate New York, or in Pennsylvania? It's called Pinkster Fest. And it's kind of odd because they like reenact the days of slavery, like without all the horrors, but just like the works that people did and the dances that people did, the clothing that people wore. And the way that rice was cultivated is traced back to Malagasy ways of cultivating rice. The kind of fabric and how it was sewn was traced back to Malagasy ways, and so was the dance. And this I found out, I also work at Mokata Museum because someone was studying Pinkster Fest, very much so, and he's been every 15 years, and he told me, he was like, yes, the roots of a lot of what happens at Pinkster Fest is tied to Madagascar. So most definitely. And during the time, I think in the 1800s in America, when there was emancipation, many black people were sent as, what do you call it, like as ambassadors to Madagascar. And there was one man in particular, his last name was Waller. He was sent to be a diplomat in Madagascar. So there's been ongoing relationships. That's a bit of a tangent. Ongoing relationships between America, the West, and Madagascar for some time, but it's not really spoken about.
Okay. The flora and the fauna, 70% of what exists on the island nation doesn't exist anywhere else on the earth.
Yes.
Some scientists have attributed this to Gondwana land, when the
Right.
mass of land shifted and all of that. But tell us something about that from a tourist point of view. What does one expect to see? I mean, because it's not like I'm going to see a tiger that
Yeah,
I know
definitely
what
not.
it looks like. Now I'm going to see something that I haven't even heard about.
Right.
What does it look like?
Well, the most famous one is the lemur. Everybody is
They
excited.
have those in Australia, though.
They do?
They do. I just
Really?
think it's a different
Species.
Yes.
Oh,
But they
okay.
do have lemurs in Australia.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do they look like over there?
Koalas.
Right.
The closest I can think of is koalas.
Right.
Yeah.
Or like a little, somewhere like monkey and raccoon together.
Somewhere in between.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
hmm
Yeah.
So we have the lemurs. I don't know what to say about them. I mean, up close and personal, their hands are really waxy and they look so cute and furry, but when they jump on you, there's nothing cute and
I
furry
was going
about
to
it.
ask about that. I was just going to ask you about that because they look so innocent. Sometimes you see them hanging around people, but are they really that
I mean,
cuddly as they look?
they're wild animals, so all they want from you is what they can get, which I made the mistake of, so the last time I went on a tour, I was like, yes, I got this. And we went to an island where it was like a lot of lemurs there. And it's the only place in the rainforest where you could actually feed them if you wanted to. So bravely, I was there with my banana and I'm walking and I'm heading all these people. And I swear to you, this lemur from feet and feet and feet away, its whole little back started to go back like a cat. I said, this thing cannot be thinking of coming to get me. It must be scared of me as a wild animal. Wrong was I, because it went back like this, and they jump for like, they can span 20 feet in one of their jumps. So the thing jumped right at me. I screamed so loud. No one wanted to go anywhere near the lemurs after hearing me scream so loudly. But yeah, so and then it just came to get its banana and left.
So it
That's all
was after the banana, not after the fact that you were in its territory. Because you know some of these animals are very territorial, and they don't like when you get near their woman and stuff like that.
Right.
It was just about the banana.
It was about the banana. After that, it was like, I don't care about you.
Okay, but there are no stories of them attacking.
No, they don't
human
attack.
beings and,
They
like,
don't attack.
harming them and stuff like that.
If you try and harm their family, they're gonna come after you, all of them at the same time. And they have their own language, just like as all animals, that where they communicate. And each tribe of lemurs have a different language where they don't necessarily understand the other. So scientists say, how do scientists know they don't understand each other? But they say that they speak their language and this one speaks this language, and they just know that
Like
it's a different one.
One of them speaks a Pig Latin version of the other one's language or something like that.
Probably the ones that live on the border of a territory,
Yeah.
they're accustomed.
Okay, so definitely tourism is huge, so to speak, in Madagascar.
Yes.
What else is huge? What are some of your other exports?
Exports, I would say vanilla. I would say
Leading producer of vanilla in the world.
right, exactly. Vanilla. We have a little bit of coffee, not quite as much as other places. Minerals is really huge. We have actually very good cotton and silk. What else do we have back home? I would say those would be
Variety of vegetables as well, I believe.
Exactly.
Like, fruits and veggies.
Exactly. But even that's becoming somewhat of a problem, because big companies come and buy the natural resource, and soon the time can come where we'll have to buy lychees in a tin can. We have like a couple different species of lychees, 9 different mangoes, 7 different bananas. But if we don't value what we have, we will no longer own our own land.
Yep, totally. So tourism, again, comes with its own attendant, problems.
Right.
The country's probably making money from tourism. But
Number one.
What do you see as some of the fallbacks from that? What are some of the problems associated with tourism?
Wow. Oh, wow. Well, as is often said, with the tourist industry comes drugs and prostitution, because that becomes a main byproduct of, people want to come and just relax themselves and have a good time. And not all tourism has to be that way. I would say that that's more so irresponsible tourism. And it gets people in the mind frame of that's how they're going to get out of the country, or get out of their poverty, or get out of their situation.
Yep.
And it doesn't look inward. Like, honestly, we have all the answers. It's all in the land. Just like if all African nations would just shut down, I mean, this is like a dream, but would just shut down and say, okay, we're not trading with the West, the world would be at it on its knees and at the mercy of us, for us to say what we want and what we don't want. But oftentimes our leaders are too willing for a Mercedes-Benz, a used one at that, and their child have the to go study abroad.
Yep.
They're willing to sell their country. And a lot of the leaders and the nations are put in place by the very powers that we've fought to be independent from. So their whole way of thinking, they've been trained to continue the agenda, so to speak.
So that partially answers my next question, but let me still ask you to expatiate a bit more. Are the politicians as hopeless as some of those on the African mainland?
I would say yes. Yes, and completely. Like right now, Madagascar is facing an election. We haven't had a proper election for quite a number of years now, because the last election that we had, I believe it was somewhere around 2000, was it 2002? And it was this man, Mark Ravalomanana,
Yeah.
and he came into power by his own means, I would say, because his family owned a yogurt company and milk factory. And people voted at this election at that time.
He gave free yogurt or something like that.
I'm sure he did some things like that as well. He was campaigning everywhere. He was kind of like the JFK of Madagascar, right? But he had the means to fly in his own helicopter to go count, and hired his own people to count all the votes. So whether or not it was really everybody was voting for him or not, we don't really know. But he was better than the one before, which was Ratsiraka, who was just, Ratsiraka had to flee the country when he found, I think it was a bag of 60 kilograms of sapphire that he was giving to the French.
Wow.
Right, and sapphire wasn't really supposed to leave Madagascar, and especially not in those quantities. So he really had to run away. And then people voted for Ravalomanana. But shortly thereafter, I believe it was 2009, what's his name? Andry Rajoelina. He came into power because the French gave him military power to just kind of take over. So Madagascar has been in a limbo and a mess. Thank God there hasn't been a lot of bloodshed over it, but things have been ridiculous. Like my cousins who are in university was just closed for like 8 months, and then we'll be back in session for 1 month and just be closed. So parents who had the means would want to send their children somewhere else so they could just finish schooling. And there would be things like curfew, where if you're caught after 9 p.m., you go immediately to prison if you're out in the street for any reason, right? But there was not like outright like blood and guts and all this other kind of thing that we often hear about when there's coups in the government. So now it's was supposed to be quite some time ago in June that we were supposed to have election, and it's supposed to be this Friday. And it's a little bit odd also because election in Madagascar usually happens Sunday. So this Friday coming in 2 days will be the first election in a while.
Wow. Your current leader, though, sounds like he's a puppet of France.
He is. And before he came into politics, everybody laughs. He was a DJ.
He was a DJ.
So you think he'd do a good job, right? He understands.
Well, I mean, I would not judge him on that because, I mean, Ronald Reagan was an actor.
Oh, right.
Yet he's one of the best presidents the U.S. claimed they've ever had. So I'm not going to judge him because he was a DJ, but I found that quite interesting that, wow, yes, we can. DJ to president.
Right.
That's
exactly.
That's a long haul.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Anyway, so he's quite a young guy as well.
Yeah, he's like 35.
He seems like somebody who was just plugged and sent to front for a group of bigger shots in the background.
Exactly. And that's basically the story.
Wow. So how are the people responding to him? Because for a while now, I mean, apart from the cartoon, Madagascar has been in the news for, the political wrangling.
Right.
And how are the people dealing with
that? People are really fed up. On the one hand, people were fed up because Mark Ravalomanana made a lot of promises, and the only thing that people got was a paved road to the airport. And it's like nothing else has changed. Things have gotten worse for us, is what people are saying. And then with this DJ, it's just people just threw their hands up. Like, what are we to do now? Can we just have some sort of stability? And I don't really know what the solution would be, because I don't necessarily know that it's a product of where we are at. I don't necessarily know that unifying under one banner of Madagascar is really something that's akin to a Malagasy way of being. It's like Saklava people had their king, Bitsum Saraka people had their king, and they had these different kingdoms, which I'm sure at certain times when there was a threat of foreign invasion, that they would come together and talk about things. But otherwise, people ruled each other regionally. And I think that made a lot more sense. Yeah, so that's...
Okay. What's the press like? What's the media like
In Madagascar, well, the media, it's not, nothing really there is independent. It's just bought sort of by different factions. So whoever has money to say, write this story, this is kind of what happens. And there are independent people who may say, who may try and get their voice out, but not really people that have control of the means of production. A little bit more nowadays with like access to internet and even Facebook, like social media platforms, but not really.
Is there a national broadcaster of some sort? Is there like a national TV network or
yes.
national radio or national newspaper network or something?
Exactly, and it's what's the Gazette? What I forget what's the name of the newspaper, but there's mainly one main newspaper and one main TV station that reports news, and maybe two news radio stations. And aside from that, people have their streams online.
Okay. What's women's rights like? How are women treated in? I know you said it's a matrilineal system. Does this flow over to the mainstream, or is it just like a cultural? You know, culturally we know it's a matrilineal system, and when it gets to the other end of it, it's just like men are all still in control. What's it like?
I would say that ever since I think it's just culturally matrilinear. It's not in practice so much. It's still such a problem. If you are a woman and you're in a workplace, you still have every single last house duty, and that is seen as the most important one that you should do. Boy children are favored over girl children. Even if the girl shows
More promise.
excellence in school, they will still support the boy who just all he wants is, basketball or soccer. They will support that one to go to school and do things and make sacrifices for
Are
him.
there any women in government?
There are a few, like the different ministers, like Minister of Health, and
Okay, so because I was going to say women who are not ministers for women's affairs, like women who are ministers for general affairs. Are there any like that?
No, not so much.
Okay, wow. All right, our time is fast closing in,
Okay.
but we still have a few more questions too. I love food.
Uh-huh.
And then when I looked on your website, the first thing that greeted me was food. Unfortunately, it's not food I can eat because I'm vegan, but food is food, you know, and I'm sure behind that picture there's like a whole array of other foods that I definitely can savor. What's the food culture like?
Oh, wow. Mostly everything has to be eaten with rice. That's like so many places in Africa. I don't even know where to begin with that. Like, let's just begin with banana bread. We must have like 150 banana breads.
Wow.
Different ways you can make bread with banana. My favorite is mufakund, which is one where you take the banana and you dip it in dough and then you fry it. And then you just eat it like that. That's one of my favorites. I don't know where to begin with that.
They have foods that are naturally vegan.
We do, but and those kind of fall into the category more so of maybe what we eat as snacks. Like one that is my favorite, also is very enriching, is one called kuba. And what we do is we take pistachio, and it's just pounded pistachio. Then you take it in the banana leaf, you wrap it in there, and you drop it fast in steam in hot water. Then you bring it out, and then you cut it like a steak. And then you take your piece from the banana leaf, and it's so sweet and so rich and so good and so good
And
for
natural.
you. And natural.
Wow, I want to go. I definitely want to go. So now tell us about your project. You are going soon, right? Are you sending a group? Tell us about it.
So I'm going this November. At the top of November, I'll be leaving before the group. And so the group trip is November 22nd to December 5th. I'll be there, lucky me, for 2 months to escape this cold here in New York City. But we'll be, the focus of this trip is how do we use the land to sort of balance ourselves. We will be starting in the capital, and then we go to a town called Ansirabe, which means the land of much salt. And it is between, sort of like between the valley of Volcano, and the water that comes up from there is calcium rich. As such, they have like a whole spa there where people from neighboring islands come to heal themselves. So there are people, stories of people who can't walk, and they get treatment there 21 days, and suddenly they're better. They can begin walking again. So that's Ansirabe. After Ansirabe, we're going to go to the rainforest, Andasibe, where we'll see lemurs and we'll be swimming in orchid waterfalls and such. After Andasibe, we'll be going to Taumasna, which is a coastal town. And there's a little town right above that, because Taumasna has sharks, but the town that is like 45 minutes north of that is called Full Point. And there we would just be enjoying the land and having grilled things on the beach and bonfires and relax and yoga and things like that. And then we'll be headed back to the capital. And we'll do other little things that aren't really offered on most tours. For example, visiting a factory where aloe vera is processed, which has the potential to cure, not potential, which has proven to cure cancer. So if people take this aloe vera for like 6 months, it can actually, without having to do chemotherapy and such, it's a mixture of vodka, is it? Yeah, vodka and honey, and you scrape the inside of the aloe vera, but it's not any aloe vera. This aloe vera, one leaf is like 8 feet tall. It's very big. And I think the only other place it may exist in the world is Brazil. So there's, we'll be visiting there and talking with the scientists there. We'll also be visiting a chocolate factory and be able to pour our own molds so that people will have souvenirs to bring back home. So it won't be your regular souvenir. You'll learn about chocolate farming in Madagascar, and speaking with the man who owns the chocolate house, and he's from Madagascar, so that's good too.
Great. So if someone wants to join, is the gate closed for?
This year, the gate is closed already. The arrangements have been made, but for next year, we're looking forward to connecting with the reggae community in Madagascar, and that's one trip. And another trip is to learn traditional music and dance of Madagascar and practice with masters. So if you want more information about that, you can visit my website at www.madagascarexperience.com. That's one word. Or you can also give me a call at 347-699-3629, and I'd be happy to answer any of your questions.
Can you please repeat the sites again for those of you watching, or for those of you who will be watching on YouTube later? We'll definitely put it down.
Okay.
So can you please share it again?
Yes,
Just so if someone wants it now, because I'm sure there are people who really want to at least go to the website and see,
Okay.
like an example of what we're
it's
talking
about.
Yeah.
Okay. The website again is www.madagascarexperience. That's spelled as MadagascarExperience.com. So that's www.madagascarexperience.com. And the phone number again is 347-699-3629.
Fantastic. So, closing words. What do you have to say to everybody who's listening and everybody who's interested in Madagascar, like myself? I have made up my mind. I'm saving up. And soon as I can afford a ticket,
Yes.
Actually, let me ask you. There are certain places where you travel, like backpacking, you know, and then you get there and you can actually find people to put up with and stuff like that. Is Madagascar like that?
Sometimes
Say
you
I
can
just
find.
decided to backpack and just...
Sometimes you can find that, like especially if you're going to certain restaurants or spaces where it's like a big sort of expat community, and then you will find your backpackers in that way. And unfortunately, I've looked myself, there's no like backpackers forum to Madagascar. And that might be something interesting to create.
Are you interested in organizing like another trip where maybe people might pay a little less. And, like instead of staying in hotels or stuff like that, they would
Right.
actually like stay with families who may be interested
Exactly.
in sharing a cultural experience or something like that.
Exactly. And those are trips to come. So, for example, the one where we're going to be learning drum and dance, that's definitely going to be a trip like that, where I know people just want to eat well and learn drum and dance.
Yep.
That's what they want to do. For this trip, that this year the price is a little bit higher, but actually, when you look comparatively to any other person offering a trip to Madagascar, you won't find the same prices for the amount for 18 days, the amount of time to go. But it is fancy hotels and nice place. Fancy, it's fancy.
Who owns these hotels? Do the Malagasy people own it, or it's still the same Cuba kind of story?
Oh my goodness. Well, some of the places, all the places but one is all Malagasy owned, and I made it a point for that to be the case. And the reason why the one, Vacona Lodge, is not is because it's the only hotel that is allowed in the rainforest. And I thought to myself, people are traveling thousands of miles. I think they would like to stay in the rainforest
Yeah.
where at your own leisure you can go and walk to the crocodile farm. You can go and walk through the forest. And there's little arrows where you can go. And if you stay at another hotel, Malagasy owned, we would still have to have an excursion to go to the place where you can wander yourself, whereas this just gives you free time.
Okay, so I realized that it's not just a commercial venture. It's there's a lot of thought in the whole thing. There's a lot of culture involved. There's a lot of arts involved. There's a lot of even spirituality involved from listening to you and from visiting your website.
Right.
So last words.
The last words, I would say, it's not specific to Madagascar, but really, we as African people need to value our culture. We need to value our traditions because that's where we find our power. Everybody else is coming from Japan, from Sweden to study African dance, and yet we're not interested in continuing it, and we will throw that away just to go to the discotheque and the clubs. That's really where our power comes from. And the more that we are invested in learning, and it's not just spirituality, it's actually metaphysics. If you look at dance as something that opens a portal to another dimension or see these things as healing, they are our power. When we understand how we can use roots to heal ourselves, we no longer need the pharmacy. So all of that is to reiterate, we must know ourselves, who we are, we must value ourselves, and that way we can prize ourselves the way that everybody else does. So that is really important to me, and I feel foundational to the mission of what it is I'm here to do.
Definitely. I would have loved to spend much more time with you. But what we're going to do is, when you come back from Madagascar, we
Okay.
would like to have you here again.
Yes.
I'm sure you have pictures to show us and
Exactly.
a lot more.
And
So,
stories.
definitely, and more stories.
And post-election stories, too.
Exactly, which we are very interested in as well. So you'll be there
Okay.
while the election is going on?
No, because the election's happening this
it's
this
right
Friday.
there. Okay.
But, it takes a while for the after
results
effects,
to-
to kind of
okay.
settle in.
Because I was thinking maybe we could cash in and have you tell us what's going on. I mean, this station
Right.
could like monitor the elections
Uh-huh.
with you or something like that. But we'll speak about that. Maybe you can find us someone who would help us do that.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, we want to say thank you very much for your time and for your insights and for everything. And like I said, when you come back, we definitely want you back in this chair to share more with us.
Wonderful. It would be my pleasure to come back.
Okay. All right. So there you have it, listeners, viewers. This has been, and I can't stop calling her the gorgeous because she is gorgeous. Yes, the gorgeous Miss Mihoby Rabeharison.
Yes, it's Mihoby.
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 Me like me you
You-B.
be. Oh, that's
Exactly.
quite simple. Mihoby Rabeharison.
Rabeharison.
Rabeharison. Did I end the extra 5 to make it a 10 over 10?
We'll say yes.
I'm trying. All right. Okay.
Okay.
But thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
And listeners, kaboom. Next week, Wednesday, same time, different platform. I mean, the same station, same platform, different vibes, conscious vibes. Until next week, this has been yours truly, Jab Beloved, saying everything is good for what it is good for. Keep it up. One love until we come again next week.
Government rest upon his shoulder. Government